welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Katarina with KM Sews, and in today's tutorial I will show you how to make these adorable coin purse and card holders. This is my original design I released a few months ago, and I thought, why not making a tutorial? So this pattern, which is right here, it has all these colored illustration and step-by-step instructions. I will provide the link below. And this pattern comes in different variations, and you have the step-by-step instruction for that as well. So you have some that is just in vinyl and have a center flap. And then you have others which are made out of quilted cotton, also with a center flap. And then you have one with a full flap, right? Just like this one here, made out of cotton. So today we will be making just this one here, and how adorable is that? So it has 2 card slots. It fits more than just 1 card for each slot. It has that zipper here with the coin purse, and you can even fit additional cards in here. So if you like this tutorial, just give it a thumbs up, and please don't forget to subscribe down below, and there's a little bell. If you just hit that little bell, it will notify you of more videos to come and tutorials, tips and tricks. And let's start sewing. Okay, here's what we need for today's project. We need our vinyl for the exterior, as well as a little bit of a contrasting vinyl for the flap, for the closure. We have our lining fabric, which is quilting cotton. We have our clips, scissor or rotary cutter, whichever you prefer. We have our thread. In this case, I use a contrasting thread. Then we have our zipper. I use zipper by the yard. Then we need a swivel hook, which is 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch D-ring. We need our 2 cam snaps for the closure, and then of course a cam snap press and the awl to make the hole, and of course we need a ruler. So, and we need our pattern. So here's my pattern, and here's the coin purse card holder that we will be preparing today. So here's the pattern that we will be using. This is for the coin purse card holder, and it has colored illustrations within. It's fairly easy to follow, and in the back you will have your pattern pieces that you have to cut out, and you would cut out on the outer side edge of that line, the thick line. So I have done that already. So all my pattern pieces are cut out, and it depends on what you're choosing. That's the pattern pieces you would have to use. So first and foremost, you have your main body, which is pattern piece A. You will be cutting 2 out of your main fabric and 2 out of lining, and you would interface your lining. If you use a quilting cotton, then you also would interface your quilting cotton. I use woven fuse, but you can also use SF101. Then you have your card slots, which is your pattern piece B, and again you would cut 2 out of the main fabric. And if you use quilting cotton, you need to also cut out 2 out of lining, because you would have to sew it together so it's lined. And then you would have to also cut 2 out of the interfacing. If you have vinyl, you don't need to interface that, and you would only cut out 2. The next pattern piece would be your top, your closure, your flap. So you can choose between 2 different kinds of flap. One is a full-size flap, which will close the entirety of that coin purse. Or you can choose just a flap that is just in the center of that card holder, which would look just like this. And you have here 2 different pattern pieces. You have one that you would use for vinyl or cork only, so you would cut out 2. Or if you use quilting cotton, you have to cut out one of the main fabric, one of the lining, and two of interfacing. Okay, first and foremost, we're using our pattern piece D1, which is for vinyl and cork only, and you would just cut out that piece out of the vinyl. And I would suggest just cutting out one piece and leave the other piece just the way it is, because we will now glue this piece onto the other vinyl and let it dry. And I use the E6000, and these are pretty good, and either this or that extreme stretch expansion, so you can use either one, and we will just adhere that to that piece. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's put some glue on it. Make sure you're pressing it on here. All the way in the edge. And then we will just turn it around and press it onto this piece of vinyl. Now we're just pressing it nicely down, turning it around. And the good thing is, if you just put a piece of book on it, just to keep it in place, and then we will just keep it for a while until it dries nicely. So I'm gonna take this, it's fairly heavy, and we just put that on there and just leave it for a while until it adheres and dries. Okay, now since this is set now, it's all adhered to your other vinyl, we will be taking the scissor and just cutting it outside on this edge, just like the other piece. Just very closely. Just making sure that we take the curve here nice. Okay. Just making a slight adjustment here. Perfect. And you have the perfect flap. And all we need to do now is just top stitch around the edge, and either with a matching fabric or a matching thread or a contrasting thread. So whichever way you want to do that. So here we are. Okay, so I have cut my pattern pieces. So here is the main body cut out of my purple vinyl. I have the card slots. I cut them also out in that purple vinyl, but you can use contrasting fabric. It's perfectly fine. I cut my lining as well as I interfaced it. And then I have my flaps. I chose those flaps that are sitting in the center. And I'm not sure if I should use this one here, which is this beautiful metallic, or if I use this one here in that white lizard type of print. So I have to still decide. In addition, you need for your D-ring, a piece, and this is also in vinyl, and then you need for your zipper, a zipper tab, which is this piece here. But first, let's go and make one of those flaps, and we will do that right now. Let's prepare the zipper and the zipper tab first. So I have already prepared the zipper tab, and we're taking that piece as per the instruction, and we're taking the two longer sides and the raw edges, and we are pressing them to the center, and then we're folding it again in half and press it so we create this little zipper tab. Let's put that aside. And then the zipper, at the open end of the zipper, we're just opening up that zipper just so slightly, and we fold that zipper. This is the right side of the zipper, and we fold that to the back just so slightly, so it would look just like this. And we're taking our clip and just clipping it in place. And now we will be just stitching along this side, so we're basting it in place. Okay, so let's start doing that. And we're basting it in place. I'm using like a 2.5 stitch length. And back stitch. And we will be doing the same on the other side. Just like that. Snipping off those threads. And again, we take the zipper. Here's the right side of the zipper, and we're just pushing it to the back, just folding it in so it lines up exactly with the raw edge here. And then we just clip it in place, and then we will just basting that piece in place. Perfect. Okay, so now we have our angled zipper, which would look just like this. Now we have to attach our zipper pull. So for this, I use a zipper jig right here, but you can also use a fork. In this case, I have my zipper pull, just like here, and I will just slide it down, upside down, with the rounded edge here, with the wide edge. I will just slide it on my zipper jig, just like this. I will open up my zipper, and I have to attach it right side down and slide it just in of the both opening. And I just align it and just pull it through. And here we are. And here's our zipper. Perfect. And now we have to just seal the edges. And here I use a lighter. As a matter of fact, at first we have to cut it to size, so we will be measuring it just from the edge of those teeth where we did that angle, just from that edge, 4¼ inch. So our zipper will be 4¼ inch long. And we cut that off. And then you can use a lighter to just seal in those edges. Just like that. Perfect. Now we attach our zipper tab to the end of the zipper, pushing the zipper end all the way through, making sure it lines all up. And we will be stitching it at 1/8 inch seam allowance at a stitch length of 2.5. And always back stitch in the begin and at the end. And snip off your threads. Now we're just going to align the side of the zipper with the zipper tab, so we just, anything that is excessive, we'll just cut that off. Good. Now we can set our zipper aside and move on to our main piece. So here too we need one of the main body, the vinyl, and we need our 2 card slots. So first we want to top stitch both card slots 1/8 of an inch of a seam allowance, so we just have a nice edge here. And again, we will be back stitching in the begin and at the end, and we're setting our stitch length to approximately 3.5. Alrighty. And we can continue with the second piece. Again, back stitching. Alrighty, that's done. I'll just snip off the threads. Snip off the thread here. Great. Now we have to draw a line from the main body piece from the bottom. So from the bottom short edge, we will draw a line that's 1 inch up. And we're using our chalk mark. Here we go. And now we have to align one of the card slots, and we line it up with that chalk mark that we just made. And we clip that in place. It just needs 2 clips. And now we will be sewing on the bottom raw edge of that card slot at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And again, we back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And snipping off the threads. Now we're taking the second card slot piece and lining it up with the bottom of the edge, just like this. And we will be clipping it in place. And now we will be sewing all the way on the 3 raw edges. We will be sewing, basting it basically in place so it doesn't move. And we can use a stitch length of 3.5 just to baste it in place with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Perfect. Just snipping off the thread. And here is our main body with the 2 card slots. So let's set this aside. Now we have to prepare our D-tab for our D-ring. So here's our D-ring, here's our tab, and we can adhere one of those double-sided tapes. Just put it in the center and removing that top here. Perfect. And we're lining both raw edges to the center on both sides so they meet nicely. And then we will be top stitching it on both sides lengthwise at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And here we don't have to actually back stitch because we will be folding it and it's going to go into our seam once we prepare our point purse. Perfect. Let's snip off the threads. Alrighty. So now we're sliding our D-ring onto that D-ring tab. And then we will be sewing right below the D-ring, just as close as possible. So I'm using a hinged zipper foot, so my zipper foot is 1/8 of an inch. So I can go very close to that D-ring, so we can just keep that D-ring in place. All right. And here we have to go and do back stitch in the begin and at the end. Perfect. Snipping off the thread. Okay. And I use my lighter just to seal the thread. Now here's our D-ring. So we will be placing that off to the side. Okay, let's take our main body with the card slots, and now we have to attach our flap and our D-ring. So we have these choices here, and we have that very metallic vinyl, the white one, and we have still that purple. And I think this time I will be going just with the purple, just to stay within the color theme here. And so we're taking our flap and we have to just top stitch around this curved edge. We do not have to top stitch here on the top. And we're using 1/8 inch of a seam allowance, and we don't have to back stitch at the beginning and the end, since this is going to go into our seam anyway. So let's start. And we have to be very careful around the curve so we're not just falling off here. So we're taking it very slow and just adjusting as we go. So this is always the tricky part, but if you take your time, it's worth it. It will look great. Once we get here to that part, we can increase our speed. Perfect. So here's our flap. Now we have to look at the center, make sure our flap sits in the center. So we can go and fold it in half and mark the center line here, which is right here. and put our flap right in that center. And then we will be using our clips and clip it in place, just like this. And then right next to it, we will be placing our our D-ring, just like that. So they are lined right next to each other. And now we will be sewing it in place, just basting it in place. And we will be using 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to snip the threads off. And this is how it looks. Perfect.